let's talk about the first three Mad Max films. So this whole week we'll be talking about Mad Max. So this video is the first three, then Furiosa and Fury Road will get their own videos, not in that order, but you know what I mean. And yeah, so let's talk about it. Mad Max, the original from 1979, is the first in these post-apocalyptic, leather-bound, car mayhem fueled series, where Max is a regular old police officer. He's part of like the main security force or whatever, and he is like 21 or something like that, or 23, and is just living his life in the wastelands, but close enough to civilization, like the little towns, that it isn't quite the wasteland yet, but he's living in sort of a small suburban area where him and his wife are going to raise their small son, and of course biker gangs rule the road. And Max also has a friend named Goose, who seems very much more like an active character compared to Max. Max very much, I think an issue that I have overall with the entire series is that Max isn't a very fleshed out character. He very often has one singular goal. In this first film, it's just to be with his family, which is fine, and it's okay that he's this way. I think the appeal of the series has always been the stunts and the atmosphere, the look, the apocalyptic leather-bound look. But I think it creates a not so interesting character. And Mel Gibson, I mean, does a decent enough job in this first film, and I think everyone's doing a decent enough job. You can tell that this is very much a very low budget indie film, filmed in Australia. They literally, from what I hear, they literally paid people with beer, and it's very small, very independent, and you can tell in the behind the scenes for Road Warrior, George Miller, the director and writer of all these films, talked about how he literally just got into the editing room and sort of pieced everything together. There really wasn't an overarching plot for most of this film. He had to just piece it together, and you can definitely feel that. You can definitely tell that this guy doesn't truly know how to tell a story quite yet. And I think that's the biggest mark against the first film, is that it's just, the story is that Max is just a regular guy, a police officer. He has a friend named Goose, has a wife and child, and at one point this biker gang with the leader name of I think Toe Cutter gets his sight on Max and Goose and decides that, you know what, I don't really like you guys, so I'm gonna kill you. And I don't know, if it's very slow, it's very deliberate, and I can see, and I don't think the Mad Max movies are for me, that's the thing, but I can see where people would love this film from the car stunts, because the stunts are cool. This series does have a really good grasp on what makes, how a car goes fast, what makes it go fast, and how to frame that fast car in a way that's exciting. I think that's a really good thing about the series. That being said, I need more substance. I feel like that's probably been very much clear throughout my entire channel, but I mean, I love things that are just style over substance. I love this, Scott Pilgrim, and I love Baby Driver, and weirdly a lot of Edgar Wright films are that way. And I don't know, I've found love for other things that are just all style and some substance or something, or either some or no substance at all. But I don't know, this doesn't necessarily click with me, at least the first film doesn't. And yeah, I think the villain's weak, and I think just the story's weak. I think if you want to get into the series, start with 2 maybe, but if you want to get the whole overall Mad Max experience, do watch this one, but just know that it's not as good as it possibly could have been if, I think, George Miller, because it's really impressive that he's a doctor who turned out to be a really famous director. Like, that's cool, but like, I feel like if he was maybe like a storyteller, that, you know, like a writer, then I think it would have been better. Like, I would love to perhaps one day see a remake of the first Mad Max made by people who can tell a story. That's probably never going to happen. I don't really imagine anyone in their right mind would want to remake Mad Max, but that would be my suggestion. Next is the Road Warrior. So the Road Warrior came out in 81. Mel Gibson is now like 25 or something like that, which is my age. It's crazy to think that he was younger than me. Even last year when I first saw these films, it's crazy to think that he was younger than me in that first movie. Now he's my age. And he looks the way that he will look for the rest of time. And I like Mel Gibson. I love Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon's my favorite film of all time. But I don't know. It makes me think, am I going to live like this for the rest of my life? Which isn't a problem, but it gets me thinking. But that being said, this film is about him. So he, in this post-apocalyptic world, as he has moved away from the suburbs, from the cities, into the wasteland proper, we discover that apparently there was a big fight over oil before the apocalypse, and even after the apocalypse there was a big fight for oil, which makes sense. In like the late 70s there was a big sort of oil scare. For those who don't know their history, there was actually a fairly big oil scare in the middle of the last century. So it makes sense that, oh, you would make a film that was like, hey, the apocalypse is brought on by the scarcity of oil. So Max is in desperate need of oil for his I think it's called an interceptor. I'll explain why I have both of these, don't worry. But for his interceptor, and yeah, he's like looking for oil, and he's told by the gyro captain, who is the who's the mouth of Sauron in the extended cut, mouth of Sauron in the extended cut of Lord of the Rings, and sorry that I mispronounced that, and is the weird guy, the weird looking dude from Revenge of the Sith, the one that Obi-Wan talks to on Utapau. So yeah, good for him. But he is the gyro captain, and the gyro captain is like, hey, look, man, you don't have to kill me for my oil or anything like that. I know where there is a buttload of oil. Max is like, show me. So he shows him this quaint little oil refinery, very small, that settlers have seemingly settled around, a small village. And Max now gets enthralled with this guy named Humongous, this big, muscular Swiss dude, wants to take all the oil for himself from these villagers, and Max, in classic Western style, has to defend the villagers from Humongous, and also, he not only gets his oil, but he also goes on the hero's journey along the way. And I think this is the most clear that Max's motivations are in the entire series. He wants oil, there's a place that has oil, and he helps them to get the oil. It's not complex in any stretch of the imagination, but it's more than we got in the first film, and I appreciate that. I think Mel Gibson is doing a good job with the loner sort of thing that he's doing. I think in the bonus feature, in the documentary, Terry Hugh and George Miller, talk about how they read up on Joseph Campbell. They read up on that sort of lore and that mythology, the same thing that George Lucas was tapping into. And they're like, okay, well, now that we know a little bit more about storytelling, what if we actually tried to tell a story? And this probably, I have not seen Furiosa yet, but this probably has the best story out of all of these. And yeah, the car stunts are cool. Something I don't think I've heard anyone mention is the weird like queer coding of the villains. So all the villains are dressed up in leather, and they talk about how they got him from a sexually explicit store. You know, they're dressed up in what's it called, SMB, BMS, like leather garb. You know, the Wiz, the sort of henchman guy with the mohawk, has like assless chaps. It's very, you know, it's very sexual in nature what they're doing in the film, and I think that like is kind of interesting, especially in the 80s when it was never socially acceptable, but like especially in the 80s when just having your villains be weirdly queer coded was just more okay. Like, I don't know, it feels weird, and I don't know if George Miller is trying to say anything with that, because it sounds like from the bonus feature, from the documentary, that they just kept walking, that the costume designer kept walking past an adult store and finally just went in and asked, hey, could we use some of your leather, and could you make custom outfits? And I don't know, it feels weird to sort of like see that, and like my like analytical brain have to like analyze that, like what are they saying with this, when I don't think they're saying anything at all. It's you know, for the first four, most complex of these, but it's also not super complex, you know what I mean? Like, it's Mad Max, like, don't overthink it. And yeah, you know, I appreciate the villagers being all in white, you know, that's very aesthetically pleasing. Mel Gibson, like I said, is doing a good job. And the chase, the final chase of the film, that's like 13 minutes long, is pretty damn well impressive. You know, it's not gonna blow your mind, but there's some really cool, like, early car stunts that are being done here. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's high octane enough that you're going to be like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, and like I can appreciate on a filmmaking level what they're doing. But I don't know, like, there's like, they literally, you know, you got the slaw, you got the sloppy, you got everything, you know, that you want in a barbecue, but the steak, the meat that they're giving you is just like this thin, you know what I mean? Like, it's just this thin, and it's not you know what I want from my barbecue. You know, I want something more. But you want to what, the Mad Max films, like I said, might not be for me, but they're pretty good enough films that I think that's slightly forgivable. And of course, for now, I haven't seen Furiosa, like I said. This is my favorite. I love very lukewarm love, but I do love Road Warrior, and I can see why it was received really well at the time, and why it put this series on the map. And that leads us to Beyond Thunderdome. So Beyond Thunderdome is about Max. He's now got long hair, and he's, you know, more roby. And he makes it to Bartertown, which is another settlement out in the wasteland, controlled and owned by Tina Turner, not the chick who sings Delta Dawn, but is a chick who I believe sings Goldeneye, the James Bond song, you know, which is actually really good, and it's like one of my top 5 favorite Bond songs, you know, Goldeneye, like that's like one of my favorites, top 5, absolutely, maybe even top 4. Love Goldeneye, the song. Yeah, so she does a good enough job. Here's the thing. Beyond Thunderdome is considered the weakest of the whole series, especially the original 3, and I can totally see why. This movie was PG-13, has very, very little plot. Like, Max shows up to Bartertown, instead of having anything to really trade, he trades in his labor, Tina Turner is like, who plays Auntie. Auntie is like, look, there's this dude named Master Blaster. Master is this short dwarf dude who sits on the top of a really tall, big, muscular dude named Blaster. Master Blaster, Master in particular, needs to be knocked down a peg. Can you do that for me? Max, of course, knocks this guy down a peg. But he also sort of doesn't follow the rules of Thunderdome. So he's sent off into the desert and is saved by these children, and they got some Lost Boy Peter Pan energy. And I think what works with the Lost Boys is that they're all boys. This has a mix. This is unisex Lost Boys. It has girls and boys, and it just leaves me asking questions of, okay, where are their parents? Oh, their parents abandoned them to go to a city that they think is out there. Okay, who like why would their parents just leave them with no adult supervision? What are these kids eating? Obviously they have water near them, probably fresh, clean, drinkable water, but what are they eating? How do they decide who's in charge? What's going to happen when they get a little older? Like, it's very strange and very weird and very obvious that George Miller and Terry Hughes, who, I believe wrote both 2 and 3 together, didn't give much thought to this. And I appreciate the mythology building that it does, the lore building, the idea that, yeah, there would be, in a world post the apocalypse, there would be children out there who would probably hear more folk talesy type stories about how the world ended. And Max, being like a 30-year-old who grew up possibly a little before the apocalypse, or maybe even a little after apocalypse, close enough to it that he has some knowledge of the, real regular world, could have answers for them. And like I said, I think it works, but here's the issue. It works so much as you don't question it. And there's a lot of things in this film that work if you don't question it. Tina Turner, how did she get Thunderdome? Why is she seemingly the only structure around? Why do they follow her? What is the origin story of Bartertown? Why is the guy who the gyro captain now, seemingly a completely different character? Are we going to acknowledge that? There's just too many questions. And before I watched this film, because it's been a year since I've watched these first 4 on this anthology collection, I bought this collection. Like, if you want to just own these films on 4K, fine, whatever. Don't buy this. This is literally, there are no bonus features except on the Road Warrior DVD, and it's literally all just 4K. It's just also that happens apparently. It's literally just the 4K. No Blu-ray, no bonus features, and you want to know what? Let's see. You can use this one's code if you can see it, and then you probably can't. And then you can use this one's code if you can see it. I'll make sure to put these on my community tab the day this video comes out. So go check that out if you care enough to. Like, this is literally just not what I would recommend if you want to just own these for 4K. Fine, whatever. Instead, get the high octane Blu-ray collection, because you get Blu-ray plus this DVD documentary, Blu-ray here, Blu-ray, you get Fury Road on Blu-ray, the black and chrome version, and 4K, and these are literally just the same discs, except one's yellow, one's black. You're not missing much. And that's the explanation of why I own that. Before I rewatched Beyond Thunderdome, I actually sort of equated it to this, because this is a PG-13, or was supposed to be PG-13, sort of third film of a rated R series. The reason why I got rated R is because, from what I hear, The MPAA didn't necessarily like that that Evil Dead 1 and 2 were released without a rating at all, so in kind of pettiness, they gave this an R, despite the fact that they were filming with the intention of PG-13, which is why there's like only one F-bomb. Good old Thunderdome does only have one PG, or one F-bomb, but is PG-13, and I mean, it's mildly less tame, or it's slightly more tame than the first two, which had like full frontal nudity, at least on the woman's side and stuff like that, and like sort of implications of SA. But I don't know, this one's still kind of like Beyond Thunderdome is still kind of rough. I wouldn't necessarily show this to people under 12, but like, I guess if you're like a little over 12, might as well show them Thunderdome if you want to, I guess. I don't know, I'm a parent. But yeah, that's it for now. Next time we will be talking about Fury Road, and then of course Furiosa, and if you're curious, I do own the steelbook for Furiosa, so there you go. Also, look, it actually looks quite nice. And then, you know, like this actually just looks quite nice. But yeah, there you go. So tune in next time for when we talk about Fury Road. And yeah, see you then. I hope you have a very lovely day. Remember that guy made special. He loves you very much. I hope you have a very lovely day. Like I said, and as always, God bless y'all, and respect the road.